Oh, here we go then. Welcome to Not the Top 20 Podcast's Championship Run-In Analysis and Predictions. This podcast sponsored by Sky Bet and the Sky Bet EFL Building Foundations Fund. George and I are going to look at all teams relevant to the promotion and relegation pictures in the Championship, look at fixtures, form, vibes, anything that springs to mind, and see what we think might happen over the next 5 weeks. In the Championship, let's start at the top. Let's analyse the automatic promotion picture as we see it, George. And let's start with Coventry City, who are top on 80 points. Middlesbrough are 9 points back on 71. And then Ipswich on 69 with a game in hand over the rest. Millwall also on 69. Ipswich's goal difference significantly stronger than Millwall's, as is Middlesbrough's. Starting with Frank Lampard's Coventry City, is it more a question of working out when they'll get promoted, when they'll have their crowning moment, or is there still some jeopardy?
My first note is 9 points clear, so likely when rather than if. So
Nice.
yeah, I mean, it's obviously not done, and it's important to say that. We've already seen this Coventry team be reeled in very quickly by certainly Middlesbrough, but the prospect of two of them doing that, I think it feels pretty unlikely. They have been relentless in terms of their good form. 6 wins in a row, and then a defeat against Southampton, which they weren't particularly bad since the form team in the league, and they bounced back with a really good 3-0 win away at Swansea. Fixtures not particularly hard. One of their games they've got left for the rest of this season is Sheffield Wednesday at home, which you would think they'll win and win comfortably. So I guess it's mainly certainly for Blackburn, Pompey, and Wrexham, who make up 3 of their last 4 games. How quickly can they tie up promotion? How quickly can they tie up the league title? And will there be a team that, once they've won the league, will drop off a little bit? I kind of feel like maybe not. I don't know why. It just feels like they'll win early enough. They'll be able to celebrate. I'm pretty sure Lampard, for his own personal managerial CV, would like them to post as high a total as possible and go into next season with some decent forward thrust. So yeah, I mean they're in a great position. They've been the best team in the league for the vast majority of it, and I'm pretty sure they're going to go and deliver that league title for Cov fans.
24 wins in their 39 games. No other team has more than 20. Middlesbrough may have been broken by Coventry. Remember heading into that game on the 16th of February, 6 weeks or so ago, it felt like Middlesbrough versus Coventry was potentially a title battle, and Borough went into it with all of the form, all of the positive energy, all of the vibes, and Haji Wright scored a hat-trick, and Coventry won 3-1. And since then, Middlesbrough have won 2, have drawn 3, and lost 1. They are winless in 4 games at home, a line I've used before, possibly quite an annoying one, but Peep Show is never far from my mind. Their form is not very top 2-y. It's just not. And yes, within that, they've had 150 shots in their last 8 games. They've hit the target with 42 of them. They've only faced 67 shots, having taken 150, and only 26 on target. They are still, by some measure, dominating football matches, but finishing is a real issue, a continuous issue, whether it's Strelec or Conway or Brown is on the end of a lot of their big chances because of his funky positioning, and he's not taking them at the moment. Aidan Morris slashed one wide. Whittaker's been pretty quiet recently. And Hayden Hackney missed the last game through injury. And unless I've missed something, there's not a huge amount of clarity as to how long Hackney is or isn't out for. That is pretty significant. Hackney is not only the standout player in the Championship this season, but also by miles Middlesbrough's most important player. And with him injured, if that is to be the case for the next couple of games, like Middlesbrough without Hackney just aren't the same team. We can't consider them to be the best version of themselves, shall we say. Then you look at the bench in their last game. Who did Hellberg use off the bench? Sarmiento, Castledine, Bangura. None of them are like, wow, terrified if they're coming off the bench, if you're the opposition. You've got Cali Sen, Soncha Hansen, Alex Gilbert, all unused, not massively fancied, clearly by Hellberg to come on and have a big impact. I basically think there's an argument right now that of this top 4, Borough have basically the least depth and quality in their playing squad and in the available players. That's with or without Hackney, I should say. And that's kind of surprising to say out loud, but I think it's probably quite important. They're still looking pretty slick in possession. They have not fallen off a cliff in terms of how they're implementing Hellberg's style. Its general efficiency when it comes to creating chances and reducing those of the opposition is still there, and that is a huge tick in the box. They had a 4-game blip earlier in the season, earlier on in Hellberg's regime, and they followed it up with 6 straight wins. So while this might sound doom and gloom, it's absolutely potentially the case that one win this weekend could lead to 3 or 4 on the spin, because we've seen that already. They are an excellent side in so many ways, but can they be a winning team again? That's the challenge here. And the best thing is, for neutrals, it starts with a game against Millwall on Good Friday at 12:30. That is massive. Then they travel to Swansea, who've won a lot of points at home under Vitor Matos. Then they host Portsmouth. Then they go to Ipswich Town midday on the 19th of April. Absolutely massive. They finish with home games against Sheffield Wednesday and Watford that they will be heavily favoured to win. And they travel to Wrexham on final day. They could be travelling to a Wrexham side that absolutely needs something in order to secure a playoff spot. A Wrexham team that have been incredible in big games at home over a number of years now. So still a lot up in the air with Borough. I do love Hellberg. I like what he's done. But sitting here right now, my confidence levels when it comes to them making the top 2 are pretty low. And that's not greatly surprising when they've only won 2 of their last 8 games. Unless they turn that around very quickly, they're not going to be finishing in the top 2. What of Ipswich, who, 2 points back, but have a game in hand?
Yeah, so that means it's in their hands, even though they're the team in third. It's hard to know what to make of their form at the moment. I don't feel particularly comfortable or confident sitting here saying that Ipswich are playing very well. Despite being a huge Kieran McKenna fan, it feels impossible to say that he's getting the best out of what is, you mentioned that Borough have the probably the least kind of quality within their squads. Despite Coventry's obvious qualities and the fact their players are showing it, I think in terms of pure ability and what we've seen in the past from their squad, Ipswich have the most. And yet, despite having a manager who, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see a decent Premier League side appoint him in the summer, and rightly so. It just isn't clicking for whatever reason at the moment. They have a couple of massive games. They host, they go to Carrow Road on the 11th for, an old farm, which is going to be incredibly important to them. And despite Norwich's playoff hopes dwindling, you can guarantee that Norwich will be doing everything in their power to stop Ipswich's march back towards the Premier League. And given their form at the moment, you'd kind of expect them to make a decent fist of that. They then host Middlesbrough on the 19th, which is one of 3 home games they've got left this season. Yeah. This season so far on the road, they've only taken 26 points from 18 away games. They've only won 7 of their 18 away games, which isn't great. And when you consider that they've only got 3 home games left and one of those is against Middlesbrough, again, the fixture dispersal doesn't look great. One other thing to mention, because of the time we're recording this, and I kind of ummed and ahed as to whether to bring this up, but there's been a scandal of sorts at Portman Road last week in terms of Nigel Farage's visit and the social media activity from himself and Reform since then. I've spent quite a lot of last week on Twitter arguing with people about this, where, to my mind, the consistent whataboutery about, like, what if this was Keir Starmer, what if this was Zach Polanski, or even people saying he's going to be the next Prime Minister, are all just basically totally irrelevant points within this. The issues that we have were, a fan base feeling like their club was being used as a political pawn, effectively, which was allowed by senior management of the club. That was the first issue. And the level of outrage that came from the fan base is purely a measure of how divisive the politician is, where I'm sure had it been Polanski, the Reform voters understandably would have been up in arms about him being there, but then because he's maybe not as high profile, it maybe wouldn't have caused the furore that this did. But the fact that it's Farage is irrelevant, and don't let anybody, in my mind at least, in terms of my issue with this, it's not the person, it's the way that the fans were treated. And then that was made even worse by clearly local press and fan groups being briefed seemingly that the club weren't a party in this.
Yeah, how did this possibly happen? Yeah, we had no idea.
The stories came out around them having paid for a tour and around them having bought shirts, and then the Athletic do what the Athletic do, and they get the story, and it turns out actually a senior official, that seems to be Mark Ashton, invited Farage to the club, and the shirts were given to him, presumably unaware about the pain that it would cause Ipswich fans who just hated seeing the club that they love, the stadium they love, the crest that they love, being used by Reform as a political tool. And again, I say this, like, you know, it's annoyed me to hear it called faux outrage and other stuff like this. I, as an Oxford fan, if there was a politician that I hated, I would be up in arms if that happened to me. If there was a politician that I really liked, I would completely understand the stance of people who hated that politician being upset about it. Like, I don't understand how it's not an obvious thing. Like, football clubs belong to the fans in my mind, and it's not the role of a CEO or a chairman or anyone else to choose who can use the football club for their own gain. But the reason that I mention this isn't necessarily just because it's news, but it just feels like a massive distraction for Ipswich at this time of the season. Like, I was reading the forum posts and other things from fans who basically, they're going to go to the Birmingham game, and at some point, inevitably, there are going to be flashpoints here. And we've seen, of course, there are a huge amount of Ipswich fans who support Nigel Farage and Reform and feel quite strongly that they're okay with this happening. And therefore, if you get into a position where there is basically a divide within a home fan base, a divide within an away fan base, and things can get poisonous within your own fans during what's an incredibly important few weeks for the club, it's just, it's so frustrating. And then to make matters worse, you know, Mark Ashton put out an apology on the website on Friday that just served to upset the fans that were supporting him in the first place.
Lessons will be learned.
Yeah.
Lessons will be learned.
We need to move forward together. And
lessons have to be learned. Lessons will be learned.
It's a mess.
Lessons will be learned.
And, you know, there's every chance, and I should say this, there's every chance, because I know there'll be Ipswich fans who are sick of hearing about this, but there are also Ipswich fans who'll appreciate, you know, it being discussed, because it has been a pretty, you know, tumultuous week or so for them and their fandom of the club. There's every chance that they win. They beat Birmingham because they're only playing one game over the Easter weekend. They beat Birmingham and it's all forgotten. But if things don't go that well, certainly, you know, with a huge derby game coming up as well, I can see this being a moment that Ipswich fans look back on and wonder how, given the precarious position they're in and given the need for, like, you know, unity going forward for the rest of the season, how this was allowed to happen and impact their season.
Millwall. They went to Portman Road. And they performed very well in the second half, in the last league fixture. From 1-0 down in the first half, rallied big time, equalised, and could have won it right at the end. Millwall, of these three, that is Middlesbrough, Ipswich, and Alex Neil's Millwall, are massive outsiders with the bookmakers to make the top two. Sky Bet odds at the moment, 10-1 for Millwall to finish in the top two. This is a team who since Christmas have more points than Coventry, have more points than Ipswich, have more points than Middlesbrough, who since Christmas have only lost 3 league games, the most recent of which was a loss to Blackburn Rovers, heavily impacted by a red card in the first half, which was swiftly rescinded. It was an error admitted by the ref or his mates and rescinded. So this is a team that, by most major measures for quite a few months now, are possibly the best of the lot in terms of their results. I like their fixtures as well. Middlesbrough on Good Friday is absolutely massive. Of course it is, but I don't mind that it's now rather than later on this season, after they've been to Ipswich and put in a performance that should give them a lot of confidence, off the back of an extended run of form that should give them a lot of confidence, that each area of the pitch I think is working quite well for Millwall at the moment. And Borough have this mental block in front of goal, particularly at home. Millwall should be able to kind of feast on that to a certain extent. Alex Neil is someone who, as a tactician and as someone setting up a team out of possession, I always trust in. And Hellberg hasn't got much experience playing against Alex Neil. Obviously, that's the same vice versa, but I feel like Neil is a sort of manager to believe in. I like the balance of the team. I think the way that Millwall play is a really good style for this season's championship. They are not incredible low block breakers, but with Femi Aziz on the right-hand side in particular, and then their threat from set pieces, they don't necessarily need to be. They're not in those positions too much, and they do find a way generally when they need to. They've also got Barry Bannon, who hasn't yet had a big impact, but I dare say there might be some games towards the end of the season where he could absolutely have a bit of an impact on that front. So next Friday's game against Borough is massive. If Millwall avoid defeat there, or if they win there, like, I am all in. Home to Norwich on Easter Monday, obviously difficult, but in terms of motivation, Norwich may just, might just tail off a little bit. West Brom away next, not easy at all. Then at home to QPR, away at Stoke, are two beachy teams, away to Leicester, who I think are really poor, and then at home to Oxford United to finish the season. I honestly, like, my big takeaway from doing this analysis is that I'm feeling things about Millwall, George. I'm feeling them in my head. I'm feeling them in my heart. I just think, like, I just can't believe they are being perceived as so far out of it compared to Middlesbrough and to Ipswich. So I must be missing something. But wow, that is hell of a game on Good Friday. And I think hopefully I've made a case for why Millwall are absolutely a top 2 candidate for sure. I mean, do we stop it there when it comes to the autos battle?
Surely not. Like, okay. I mean, I don't think Hull will finish in the top 2. Mm-hmm. And reading like Baz Cooper, who's the Hull City journalist, local journo, has written a couple of pieces in the last week or so, all about, for the Hull Daily Mail, all about what Hull need to do to finish in the playoffs. Sergei Akirovic has spoken about, the need to finish in the playoffs, and even mentioned, compared to the pressure of last season where they were in a relegation battle, there's no pressure for this one. There doesn't seem to be any talk within the club and its fans about finishing in the top 2 at the moment. But I'm pretty sure that will change quite quickly if they have a good Easter, because they go to Oxford on Easter Friday, which is obviously a winnable game, but then they host Coventry. If they beat Coventry, if they get 6 points from those 2 games, then I can guarantee there will be talk, and they will be very much in that picture. And what's the chance? The chance of that happening is probably 8-1 shot or something. So mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's likely, but I think at this stage, if you're going to be quite bullish about Millwall's prospects of finishing in the top 2, then with Hull just 3 points behind them, you can't say that they're out of it with 7 games to go. But having said that, and this is what we said on the pod a couple of times recently, there's also a fair chance they finish outside the top 6. Mm-hmm. Like, they are the team at the moment that could finish 7th or 2nd, mm-hmm. With only 7 games to go. Injury issues have kind of plagued them all season and have made what they've done even more impressive. For their last game, they had Coyle out, Hirakawa out, Jacob out, Giles and Famwo. We'll have to see if there have been any more injuries, if any of those are coming back. But that seems to have been a kind of issue for them recently. I do also think that this iteration of Hull, the Hull we're seeing right now, even though the results aren't necessarily better than what we've seen other times of the season, look to me to be a better team, a more consistent team. Like, the bad results recently, the 3-1 defeat against Millwall, where they were the better team at 0-0 and for much of the, certainly in the first half of that game. And then the 3-0 defeat against West Brom, where they were obviously really poor, but they also went down to 10 men with their most important defender, Charlie Hughes, sent off in the first half when they were 1-0 down, up against the West Brom side, who it kind of felt like came out swinging there, knowing the trouble that they were in. So, I don't know. My assumption is it'll probably end up with them finishing around about where they are right now, but they feel like the one team with, to use one of your favourite phrases, the highest ceiling and the lowest floor of the kind of, the jeopardy is highest with Hull.
I'm excited for, fingers crossed, Carl Joseph, Joe Gerhardt and Ollie McBurney to all be fit for the rest of the season, because I'm really enjoying watching those 3 play in attack together. I think they mean that Hull are always going to be massively threatening no matter what else is happening elsewhere on the pitch. Then, of course, there's guys like Liam Miller and Mo Balumi, and it's hard to keep track of who's injured and who's not at times, but they do have some really exciting players.
Who's in their 25-man squad? Feels like there's been so many players they've used. I don't even know who.
Yeah. Southampton, a 6th right now. And I think it's kind of a fun championship at this moment in time, where the 2 best teams in terms of results since New Year's Day, so 3 full months of football, lots of matches in that time, are the teams in 6th and 10th in the league. So Southampton and Norwich, no matter where you chop up your form table, up until about 15 games, Southampton and Norwich stand out above all of the rest, all of the ones that we've talked about, all of those going for automatic promotion. So Tonda Eckert has to take an unbelievable amount of credit for the turnaround, because we all watched Southampton play for the first few months of this season, and they looked lost and disjointed and had a pretty weak personality and fluctuated massively in their consistency of performance within games and from game to game. Now, Eckert has managed to do something that I think is like one of the most simple, basic, but effective things that you could possibly want any manager to do, and that is to take the team, and by that I mean the players available, and put them in the right spots on the pitch to do what they do best and to hide their weaknesses. I think it's very hard to say that how they were playing under Will Still was doing that. I do think there was some relegation hangover type stuff that probably played a part as well, which is now kind of worn off. But in very, very simple terms, Eckert's massive skill has been to, in some ways, simplify Southampton to the point where their excellent squad for the level is able to perform like an excellent team for the level. And we've talked about it a few times, but Harwood Bellis and Jack Stephens, just a consistent starting duo at centre-back. Stephens is the guy that will never die in a Southampton shirt. They're constantly trying to buy players to replace Jack Stephens, and it always comes back to Stephens when they're in the Championship. And Harwood Bellis, particularly with his passing over the last few weeks, has shown why he has an England cap, has shown why, realistically, he probably shouldn't be playing in the Championship. In Bree and in Manning, they've just gone with some fullbacks who know this league, who are kind of high floor guys, not going to let you down. Obviously, Manning's left peg has a huge amount of quality as well. Peretz has been a revelation in goal, one of the most impactful January signings in the whole division. And then in midfield, you've got Flynn Downs and Shea Charles. Like, what an unbelievable duo on paper. And finally, with Charles back fit and Downs through a sort of sticky patch form-wise, starting to look like the midfield duo that they should be on paper. And then in attacking areas, spoilt for choice, really. Azaz and Fellows, Cienza, who missed the last game but is a sparkling player. And then Ross Stewart, Carl Larin, Cameron Archer, Matsuki, Edozie, whoever you want, really. Like, Eckert has got this team playing to the level that they can and should play at, and that means that they are right now one of the best teams in the league. That means that, for me, it's hard to imagine them now dropping out of the top six having got here, but they're still going to have to do it the hard way, because next they've got Arsenal in the FA Cup quarterfinals, and that will take a lot out of them. It means they're not playing on Easter weekend, or not on Good Friday, or on Easter Monday, but they do therefore have to squeeze a game in at Wrexham on Tuesday at 8 p.m, and there's a bit of a sort of given, isn't there, about EFL teams having massive cup games and then their next league game just lacking a little bit of energy, whatever the case may be, after the Laws Med show stuff. So that Wrexham game, really difficult fixture and an incredibly important one, because Wrexham are just outside the playoff places. They are level on points. It's a massive game to have at quite an inopportune time for them. Then they host Derby, who are just below Wrexham in the table. So their next two league games, direct playoff challengers. It's a massive first 10 or 11 days of April. Then it's Swansea away, home games against Bristol City and Blackburn Rovers, who they should win, not based on form and quality. And then Ipswich away on the penultimate game of the season. It's a Tuesday before final day. Everyone else in the league will have played 45 games at that point. It is the one game that Ipswich and Southampton will have to make up and get onto 45 games before final day. It's absolutely huge, and they host Ipswich Town. That'll be one of the games of the season, no doubt about it. I'm still feeling pretty good about Saints, but yeah, analysing the fixture list at least flags up the challenge that they have, particularly over the next 2 weeks. Wrexham, level on points, just outside on goal difference. Saints away on Tuesday, and before that, presumably a Good Friday option.
Yeah, it's the fixtures are kind of the biggest concern for me with Wrexham, where, I mean, the one thing to note is that their last two games of the season could be the hardest games of the season, or could feasibly be quite kind, given depending what happens up at the top, because they go to Coventry on penultimate day and then they host Middlesbrough on final day. Now, if Coventry and Borough are both up, or if Middlesbrough know they're going to be finishing third and are not finishing the top two, that game changes completely. However, if Coventry are still in a title race and Borough, go into the final day needing a result for anything, then that could be a total disaster. Even the games that a couple of weeks ago looked like they were favourable aren't now. They go to West Brom on Good Friday. West Brom in much better form under James Morrison. The trip to Oxford on Tuesday, the 21st of April, that looked like it could be a game where Oxford were already down a couple of weeks ago, but 10 points from 12 for them suggests that they'll probably still be in the mix. So the fixtures are a big concern, and they also host Southampton on the Tuesday after Easter too. So that is a worry. There's also, again, a mounting injury list. And we spoke a couple of weeks ago about the possibility of Wrexham dipping into the free agent market because of the injuries to Matty James and to Ben Sheaf. I don't have that much sympathy now. As is always the case, you talk about it and then you actually see the squad, and when you see that Zach Vine has been playing in midfield and done pretty well before the the international break, and Ollie Rathbone came off the bench for the last 20 minutes of that game, who can easily play in a deeper role. Lewis O'Brien playing in a more advanced role. And you're like, well, if they drop deeper, who else have they got? Well, Nathan Broadhead was an unused substitute. Davis Keillor-Dunn was an unused substitute. Bailey Cadamarchi was an unused substitute. Like, they have a lot of strength and depth, and they are playing very well. And are certainly a team with kind of the upward momentum going into this. But as you often say, Ali, whether that actually counts for anything is up for debate. It can often be massively over-indexed that momentum actually can take you anywhere. All it means is they're a team that have won a few games. But after international break, where quite a few of these players have been on international duty, obviously Kiefer Moore missing for Wales, and his return as and when he does come back for Wrexham will be big, but that I don't think is imminent. So yeah, it's going to be really tough for them to force their way in. And I think it's fair to say if they do force their way in, given the fixtures they've got, they're going to have to be very, very good to do so. And I wouldn't put it past them at all. But you know, if you're pitching them up against Southampton, I think it's hard at the moment to make a case as to why they'll finish on more points. So then I guess, can they chase down Hull?
And is there space for Derby County? Because they're in 8th at the moment. They're 3 points back. And I like them a lot. And I think it's been an interesting couple of months for them in the 2 months ago, their away form was incredible. And now it's not great. They've lost 3 of their last 4 on their travels. Their home form was not great. And now it's amazing. They've won their last 4 games at Pride Park. It's amazing how something like that can flip. But I think at this stage, they've got pretty much exactly what you want. A very, very settled team. A manager that has full buy-in and is continuously proving to be an excellent manager at the level. They've got firepower, no doubt about that, not just with Adjimang, who I'm obsessed with, but also there's Golden Boot winner from 23-24, Sammy Smodics in behind him. Doesn't need many chances to score. No doubt will have a say in the last few games of the season, I'd imagine. They've got a bit of an issue in goal where Zetterström's been out, and I don't know really when he'll be back. It hasn't seemingly affected them that much, so you might say it's not an issue then, is it? If O'Donnell's playing fine, there's no doubt that O'Donnell wouldn't be considered a championship starting keeper, and certainly not a playoff level goalkeeper, but he seems to be performing okay at the moment. Big next couple of weeks for them. They might be out of this, frankly, with 4 games to go. They play Coventry away on Good Friday. They then host Stoke, and then they travel to Southampton, who they are trying to chase down. So I sort of feel like if they can get past that Southampton game, no more than 3 points away from 6th, then anything goes, really. They've got Oxford at home, Beachy, maybe Norwich City away, Beachy, probably QPR away, and then Sheffield United, nothing to play for at home to finish the season. So they finish the season with 3 teams that won't have as much motivation, shall we say, for a strong result. But they need to get to that point through a tricky couple of weeks. Coventry away, then Stoke at home, Southampton away. Lots to like about them, but look, lots to like about Hull and Southampton and Wrexham and Derby, and realistically, only 2 of those 4 can make the playoffs. We're not going any further when it comes to the playoff picture, with apologies to Watford, for example, in 9th.
Don't apologise.
7 points off it, and then Norwich 2 back from that. A point behind Norwich, you've got Birmingham and QPR. Then a point behind that, you've got Preston and Swansea. At this point, we're 11 points off the playoffs, and it just seems very, very unlikely. Of course, next season, the playoffs will go down to 8th. So this podcast episode next season will be complete carnage, because 8th spot will get a playoff place after the changes that have been made recently. But for now, we reckon 9th and below, more or less on the beach.
Oh, Ali, we used to ban each other from taking holidays during the football season because it was too difficult to keep up to date with the leagues. But that's all changed with NordVPN.
Yes, it has. Watching sports while you're abroad is no longer an issue. That's why, for example, around the turn of the year when I went to Spain, it was all so seamless, and we still podded while I was out there because I didn't miss a single kick of football. Live stuff, highlights, all of it. With NordVPN, you can switch your location from anywhere in the world in order to access the content that you pay for and enjoy at home. I use it to book flights, to avoid price discrimination. It's very, very easy to use. One of the fastest VPNs out there. Great for cybersecurity as well, which is very important to me. And I think, George, just a great addition to modern life.
And we have an exclusive discount for NTT20 listeners, a discounted price and 4 extra months free by heading to nordvpn.com/NTT20. That's nordvpn.com/NTT20.
Right, quick break from our run-in analysis to talk about some big news in the Championship in that mid-table section. Bristol City sacking Gerhard Struber and appointing Roy Hodgson. we had Colin Kazim Richards being appointed by Crawley, and then we had Bristol City appointing Roy Hodgson. This is unbelievable.
An incredible international break for just weird stuff happening in the EFL. We've already spoken about a political scandal at Portman Road, as you mentioned, Colin Kazim Richards turning up at Crawley, and then Roy Hodgson, as I said on Twitter, kind of doing the reverse Hodgson gif in terms of actually kind of waking up and looking excited rather than the other way around.
44 years after being sacked by Bristol City.
So good that. So
unfinished business.
Like genuinely half the fan base just not alive. None of the players alive when he was manager of Bristol City last. But he goes back to finish off what he started. You made your very own Hercule Poirot. You made the point that Richard Scudamore, formerly chief of the Premier League, whatever he was, CEO of the Premier League, who's now on the Bristol City board. So presumably he'd have known Roy Hodgson relatively well. We might be putting two and two together, making five, but there may be a link there as to why he's turned up at Ashton Gate. But it's, the statement said it's to do with raising standards. Obviously, Hodgson is someone who, has been an elite level manager previously. I probably didn't expect us to see him manage again, certainly not the Championship. Whether or not Bristol City players would really know much of his work or have heard of him is up for debate, given quite a lot of them will be in their kind of early 20s. But either way, he's obviously a man with a great reputation, and maybe he'll come in and, it's obviously a short-term fix. The timing of Struber's departure felt pretty abrupt to me, so I'm not sure if something happened there or not. It's at a time where it seems like Bristol City's prospects of doing anything this season are gone. It comes during a process to appoint a new sporting director that will be made in the coming weeks, and it's Roy Hodgson's come in and just, I think, tread water between now. Just a safe pair of hands, someone who will come in and maybe be able to unload some grandfatherly wisdom on a couple of the players before moving on, and hopefully for a new era.
Can I be honest? I hate that.
Okay.
I hate that concept of like safe pair of hands just because this season's gone and everyone's angry, and if we just sort of close our eyes and get someone with a lot of experience in, like what do they think is going to happen? Just like the next month or two aren't going to exist, aren't going to happen, or somehow pass without any incident. Like the fact is that this is pouring gasoline on the fire, really. The fire being the Bristol City fans are already incredibly unhappy with the way that the club is being run, and it's a thing that might surprise a lot of outsiders, because I think, including myself, I see Bristol City as a team who, yes, very famously, they are the biggest, if not one of the biggest teams one of the biggest, if not the biggest team to never make the Premier League since its inception. They have been finishing broadly mid-table in the Championship for a long time, and that sort of instigates boredom, to be honest, and people laugh at them and Preston because they've been in the league for a long time without going up or down. But what it really means is they've been a club with a pretty high floor. They haven't had a shocker in the form of a relegation for quite some time. Unlike many other teams of a similar size, they have avoided that, and that I think a lot of people broadly kind of respect. But you could also say that they haven't achieved something that lots and lots of other teams have achieved. I think of, if you're a Bristol City fan, you look at Luton making the Premier League, you look at even Coventry about to make the Premier League, who were in League Two 7 or 8 years ago, and you just wonder, why not us? Why never us? And of course they did make the playoffs last season under Liam Manning, and maybe that was going to be the sign that they were getting stronger. But clearly that wasn't the case. It wasn't built on strong foundations. Manning left. The squad, honestly, I think quite slowly over the last few years has got worse. Injuries haven't helped this season, but at centre-back, at wing-back in particular, like, it's pretty shambolic how much they have to chop and change. They have to play players on their wrong side and try and cobble things together. It's a bit of a confusing one from the outside, but I think, the fan base's concerns or anger to a certain extent has got to be pretty well founded, because they are the ones that focus most on what's going on. There's a lot of disillusionment about a lot of aspects of it, including things like the academy. The fans have such pride in the players that they've produced over the last few years, but from what they perceive, looks like the academy's taken a bit of a hit over the last few years, isn't producing the players that it used to. It's that moment that lots of clubs have where everything is horrendous, so that's how it feels and that's how it's being presented. It won't necessarily be like that forever, and I don't know what a kind of next steps looks like for a post Steve Lansdown Bristol City era, because he is, obviously right now unbelievably unpopular. Clearly, he is also an unbelievably rich local man who has funded the club and built it up in many ways to quite impressive modern standards, while potentially not always making the best decisions on a footballing point of view. Now that relationship seems to have broken down from both sides, I should say. He has said some very ill-advised things in recent interviews about the fans and their impact. And it's a pretty ugly scene at the moment. But the state of football finances, and Bristol City's in particular, is such that, George, I would have massive concerns about what you do from this point going forward, because to get someone in that's willing to foot 10 to 20 million pound losses every year to take this team, it's not an obvious one from the outside that goes like just a little bit of a tweak here and you'll be a Premier League club in no time. But it's tantalizing enough, right? But who is that? There aren't.
Well, no, but this is why we get to the crux of why ownership groups often and relationships break down between fan bases, because they're looking at a balance sheet and thinking, look at the amount of money that we're losing here, whilst also receiving pelters from the fans. And both people are right. Like, I can understand why, if you're an owner of a football club and you're writing off tens of millions of pounds of your personal wealth on an annual basis, or at least risking that by, racking up debt at a club, you probably want some kind of an acknowledgement of that, but instead you're being question. But similarly, as if you're a fan, you're saying, well, you shouldn't have bought a football club in the first place if you're not going to willingly lose the money. It's a very nuanced conversation. What I would say about Bristol City, and I agree with you for the most part about your safe pair of hands point, but I do think if you're appointing a new sporting director, I think them coming in to a club with an interim manager like Roy Hodgson, and therefore being able to kind of start with the decks cleared and a blank canvas, rather than coming in and having a guy who's clearly a big personality in Struber, who will feel like he wants some autonomy over what's going on at the club. This feels like it's a clear the decks operation before a new era at the club. But let's see who they appoint.
Do you know what I'd have done? As if that matters at all. I'd have gone under 21s or academy coach till the end of the season. I'd have gone clear remit, give 5 to 6 debuts of our strongest young players. Let the fans see
there's probably an element where, like, is Roy going to be out there like doing the sessions every day, or is it probably going to be?
I don't know what he's going to be.
Is it going to be just come and say nice things to the lads, be around there?
I just don't think that's a thing.
I think it's just a PR thing, basically.
Right. Okay. It was quite a bad PR move, I would say, in many ways.
That's what people talking. Social media KPIs have been hit.
Championship, relegation, there are, let's be honest, 5 teams fighting to avoid 2 relegation spots, with Sheffield Wednesday already down. Let's start from the bottom. There's Wednesday on -6, then Oxford on 39, Leicester on 39, Portsmouth on 40, at West Brom and Blackburn on 43, 4 points above the relegation zone. Of that group, Portsmouth have a game in hand. It is a game that they have at home to Ipswich Town in a couple of Tuesdays' time. George, let's start with Blackburn and with West Brom. They've both had a good few weeks after a very bad few weeks, and therefore feeling a little happier than they would have done had we done this episode a couple of weeks ago. With Blackburn, there's a lot going on, including the reality of the Martin O'Neill taking Northern Ireland to World Cup playoffs while being involved in a championship relegation battle with a national squad that has 22 EFL players in it, and just happens to be that Northern Ireland's kind of median footballer is someone involved in the championship relegation battle. They lost to Italy, but they have this game on Tuesday, and you're struggling to think about anything else.
Well, no, I mean, firstly, I think it's only fair to Blackburn fans to start by analysing them and their chances before we get into that, because naturally, if you're a Rovers fan, you're going to be like, this is nonsense, we shouldn't be spoken about. I, as an Oxford fan, disagree. So we'll start with where are Blackburn? Blackburn are okay. Like, yes, their last 2 results have been much better. They were horrendous in their 1-0 defeat at Oxford on Wednesday the 11th of March. That made it 1 point from 4, and that point came thanks to a set-piece goal from Hayden Carter very late in the day when they're hosting Portsmouth and were second best in that game. So it hadn't been great. They were 1-0 down against Millwall, having played much better, but it was a red card that was later rescinded for Zach Sturge that opened the door for them to go win the game 2-1. They were then second best against Middlesbrough, but managed to, how do you look at it? either it was a backs against the wall, heroic display of defending that led them to get a 0-0 draw, or it was Borough missing a few chances when probably on the balance of play, normally they win that game. So I wouldn't say there's like, they're not, unlike West Brom, who you're going to talk about in a second, where it feels like their performance level has shifted massively in the last couple of weeks.
Spoiler alert, but good God, yeah.
Yeah, with Blackburn, I'd say there is still a fair chance that they are really bad and might continue to be bad. It probably doesn't help that O'Neill, they are gearing up for a trip to Birmingham on Friday afternoon. They then host West Brom in a huge game on Monday. And right now, Michael O'Neill is with Northern Ireland thinking about a friendly against Wales on Tuesday night. And you assume, well, we know that he won't be back at Blackburn until Wednesday at the earliest, 2 days before match day. So realistically, he's going to have one session with the players. Obviously, as a coaching staff, it doesn't seem ideal. You've then got this ridiculous situation where, because O'Neill's Northern Ireland manager, and because Northern Ireland have a lot of EFL players, and they now, like, had they beaten Italy and had a playoff, a winner-takes-all playoff against Bosnia, there'd have been no issue, right? Because the motivation to win that game is massive and whatever else. But now they have this friendly that nobody wants. And all eyes are going to be on the team that O'Neill picks, because he has 4 Oxford players in his squad, of which I would say 2 are guaranteed starters for Oxford, and Jamie Donnelly, who started up front against Italy, and Kieran Brown, who plays every game or every minute when he's fit. Jamie McDonnell has fallen behind Yusuf Konak in the pecking order. Brody Spencer could play fullback, but Sam Long plays most minutes under Matt Bloomfield, so it's those 2. Terry Devlin, who is the Portsmouth right back, who started and played 70 minutes against Italy last time. They also have Isaac Price, who plays for West Brom, and West Brom play against Blackburn on the Monday, Easter Monday, having a game on Friday as well. You have Paddy McNair, who's in the squad, who will be competing with Kieran Brown for a place in the team on Tuesday night, who is at Hull, having joined Hull in January. Hull play Oxford on Friday. It's going to be interesting, because if, as an Oxford fan and as a Pompey fan, if you see the team when it comes out on Tuesday and Devlin's in it, and Brown's in it, and Donnelly's in it, McNair isn't in it, Atchison, who's the young Northern Ireland player who is at Blackburn, who's in the squad, isn't in it. It's going to be very hard not to think. And to be frank, if I was Michael O'Neill, you've got to be tempted to do it. Like, he is Northern Ireland manager, but it's a friendly, and he's also a Blackburn manager. His job is to keep Blackburn up, and he has the ability to significantly impact what happens in terms of the teams around them season between now and the end of the season. So, like, is he kind of within his rights to do it? Like, I don't really know, but as a fan, it just seems crazy that we're in this situation where, if Jamie Donnelly plays 80 minutes, if Terry Devlin plays 70 minutes in a game against Italy, and then they play 17, 80 minutes in a friendly on Tuesday, can they realistically go back to their club and play Friday, Monday over Easter weekend? Like, probably not. It's a bit of a mess. So we'll see. But
yeah.
I mean, it's fun, I guess, to talk about.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly fun personally, and I just find I understand all points of view, but I also just think, like, he just needs to manage Northern Ireland for a game.
For sure.
The thoughts of championship fixtures on Friday really shouldn't have basically any bearing on his team selection whatsoever.
But then I come at it from a different way, where, like, it just will. Like, he's a human being.
Yeah.
I personally don't necessarily, if he were to make decisions that impacted the run-in that benefited him, I wouldn't necessarily blame him. I blame the fact that he's able to take both jobs at the same time when there's clearly a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Like, if the team sheet comes out on Tuesday and, like, Brown, Donnelly, Devlin play, Atchison isn't in, McNair's not in, it's gonna be pretty hard not to look at it and think, and Price plays. Like, every single decision that could benefit Blackburn is made, then, like, even if it is a conspiracy, it's gonna be hard to sit there and be like, this is okay.
That's why it's the perfect storyline, playing out in front of our eyes. West Brom, you mentioned, they're playing really well at the moment. And boy, did they need to, because they lost at Oxford and things were pretty glum, were pretty bleak, unbeaten in 4 since then. And draws against Sheffield United and Saints, 2 good sides. And then they beat Hull. And then they beat Bristol City, both of them 0. I think you have to love what James Morrison has done. Eric Ramsey, I'm afraid, wasn't able to do anything like this. And by this, I don't just mean the results, but by what I perceive to have been a big factor in them. And that is, like, I'm quite obsessed with basically forcing partnerships to build on a pitch in order to make a team unit, not chopping and changing every single week when you're in a tough position, hoping that you roll a 6 and find some magic formula at the drop of a hat. It's quite brave not to chop and change. It's quite brave when everyone's losing their minds to go, I'm going to play the same group of players for a run of games, even if to start with it doesn't look great. I think in football management, in football recruitment, and certainly in managerial recruitment, like sometimes it's braver to do nothing rather than to do something. And in this instance, I'm talking about chopping and changing, tweaking formation, changing personnel, trying to find something. What Morrison has done really well is build partnerships. Mollenby and Diakite have started all of their last 4 games. The centre-backs, George Campbell has solidified his position at centre-back, having played a lot of the season at right-back to start with. Nat Phillips has played alongside him in the last 2 games. They've kept 2 clean sheets in that time. Max O'Leary has played behind them in all games apart from the last one where he was ineligible on loan from Bristol City. Down the right-hand side, let's build a partnership. Danny Imre and Jed Wallace, they've started 3 of the last 4 games together down the right. Having an older player in Wallace in front of Imre, who's a young player with no experience at this level, makes a lot of sense to talk him through it. Don't leave him exposed. That's something that Wallace is very good at. Down the left, Styles and Price. Let's build that partnership. They complement each other quite well. Price wanted to come inside and play basically as a number 10. Styles can handle the left flank. Up top, Hegerberg has started all of the last 4 with one of DK and Madger. They offer slightly different things. You can either go for the aerial bombardment approach of Hegerberg and DK. Madger's someone that can drop in and play a little bit more. Build the partnerships. They have taken, in the last 4 games, the second most shots in the league and created the second most big chances in the league over 4 games. They have faced the second fewest shots and the second lowest XG against. Now, it's a small sample size, but based on the teams that they've played in particular, this is legit form. I basically think at this point, the only thing that could trip them up, George, is if they are truly weak mentally. And it's not analysis I would normally come out with, but that's what we'll find out. Because performance-wise, we can't say there's something relegation-y here. Tactically, he's getting it right. There's nothing that suggests that this is a team that doesn't know how to win games at this point. There is nothing wrong with this team. So, they host Wrexham on Good Friday. The big question will be if they lose that game, which they might do because Wrexham are a really good team, how will they respond at Blackburn on Easter Monday? That's the big question. After that, Millwall, Preston, Watford, they've got Sheffield Wednesday on final day. Their fixtures are positive, I would say, for them. Generally, they do have a game against Ipswich as well. But West Brom, for the first time in a while, feeling pretty positive about, and hopefully I've broken down why. What about Portsmouth? Almost
pretty
the opposite.
Hard to feel positive about Portsmouth at the moment. Performance is not great. They picked up 1 point from their last 6 games. When they went to Millwall on the 21st of February and beat them 3-1 to lodge their second 3-1 away win in a row, it felt like they were basically safe. And now they are in a world of trouble. John Mousinho back in kind of around January time, I think two key things happened. Firstly, Ebu Adams arrived at Fratton Park, which gave them a completely different dimension in the middle of the park. He's been one of the best players in the league probably since he joined in terms of his all-action displays in the middle of the park, scoring crucial goals such as the one against Southampton in the derby. But also a bit of a shift in playing style, as I've spoken about quite a lot, with Pompey looking to dominate the ball more, looking to step up a bit more. And Mili Ali has been a pretty good addition, albeit maybe kind of tailed in the last couple of weeks. But I think the initial impact that the change of style had in a positive way, which I think probably caught the opposition off guard a bit, they've slowly kind of been found out, and it's been such a staple of the last couple of weeks, and never more so than the 6-1 defeat at QPR of seeing teams easily getting behind them, turn their relatively slow centre-backs, and not really need the ball to create chances against them. And it's going to be interesting to see how Mousinho approaches these next few games. They go to Norwich on Friday. Could be quite a good time to play Norwich, possibly. Although I'm sure Norwich fans are probably looking at the remaining games thinking if we can just win all of them, we might be able to force our way into the top 6. And then there's, in my mind, as a fan, a bit of a winner takes all clash, although take all but might still lose it all later on in the season, as Oxford travel to Portsmouth. And that game at Fratton Park on Monday, on Easter Monday, just feels huge. I've said it before. I think whoever loses that game will get relegated. And it's hard to make a case as to why that won't be the case. Ebu Adams is injured at the moment. I think everyone at Portsmouth is kind of waiting on John Mousinho's pre-match press conference on Wednesday to find out the extent of his injury. He got injured at Loftus Road in that 6-1 defeat. He was then sent back from international duty. So we will see what happens there. But, key players just around the park struggling for form. Colby Bishop hasn't had it all season. Connor Chaplin hasn't had it all season. Josh Murphy wasn't as good as he was last season, has been injured for the last few months and won't be coming back before the end of the season. So it's been a bit of a catalogue of errors, some bad luck, some bad judgment, and Pompey need to find a way to turn it around. After the QPR game, there was a lot of talk about Mousinho and his position. It feels to me like Mousinho will probably be the one to take Pompey down if they do go down. It doesn't seem like there's any agreement within the club itself as to the fragility of his position, and I think
now,
understandably so.
Now Roy Hodgson's not available. It's sort of like,
tough.
well,
and Roberto
where else do you
as well.
turn? Yeah, that's tough. Leicester are in the relegation zone as we record. They have won one of their last 13 games. They have picked up the fewest points in the league since Christmas, not including Sheffield Wednesday. Under Gary Rowett, who replaced Martí Cifuentes, they have 1 win, 4 draws, 2 defeats. That is 7 points in 7 games. So Rowett has stopped the team losing, but not much more than that. And the points return of 7 in 7 kind of still needs to get better in order for them to stay up, you'd think. I'm trying to work out what we can definitively say in terms of analysis of the performance under Rowett. I think they've got somewhat stronger defensively, but not to anything near like shutdown levels defensively, not to the point of West Brom, for example, where they're just squashing teams and keeping clean sheets, and looking quite comfy doing it. Don't think they've got much or any better in attack, and you made the point multiple times. Why would we have expected them to get better in attack under Gary Rowett? That's not necessarily what you kind of expect or even demand from him. Why would you? That's not his strength necessarily. In terms of squad mentality and team personality, I think they have to be considered the weakest of this whole bunch. They are certainly the group of players out of Oxford, Pompey, and certainly Blackburn, to a lesser extent West Brom, certainly the group of players that would have least expected to be scrapping for survival, probably least equipped or with less experience of doing so. In terms of individual player skill, obviously they're at the top of this mini league for sure, but if that was such an important factor, then they wouldn't be here, would they? They have always had a strong squad on paper and some great individuals, and even people like Fatawu and Jordan James, their numbers this season are pretty good in isolation. It's not led to Leicester being a good team. They've got a pretty intriguing fixture list. It includes 3 away games against current bottom 6 teams. Got a good Easter weekend slate. Home to Preston, away to Sheffield Wednesday. They'll be favourites to win both games. They could feasibly get 6 points, and that would leave them feeling a lot better about things. Then it's Swansea, then it's away to Portsmouth, Hull at home, Millwall at home, and they finish away at Blackburn Rovers, which could be a huge game on final day. I'm not feeling great about Leicester, if I'm honest, but I do recognise that we may be recapping the Easter weekend. Basically, there's really no excuse for them to get less than 4 points, I would suggest, based on the fixtures, and that will change the picture significantly. What about Oxford United of Oxfordshire?
Hard to kind of say where we are. I mean, obviously the 10 points from those 4 games was a big thing for Oxford's survival hopes, and the performances within them were pretty good. I think Matt Bloomfield's come in and done well. It took him a while to, I think, work out the best team, and he made some mistakes along the way that have helped get there. The defeat at Southampton was disappointing, but probably to be expected. It's just going to be a huge Easter weekend, really. Hull at home, Pompey away will probably tell the story. If we can come away from that still in with a sniff, then I think we've got a decent chance of doing it, because home games against Sheffield Wednesday and even Watford are games that you can probably look at as being okay. Millwall away on the final day could be anything. Again, it could be a dead rubber for Millwall if they know that they're going to be in the playoffs, which, despite your eloquent and persuasive argument earlier, is probably still the likeliest thing, is that they'll go into that game on final day knowing they're maybe fighting for 3rd or 4th, but realistically knowing they're probably going to be in the playoffs and they're probably going to be playing their home tie second. So we'll see. The proficiency from set pieces has been a big plus in the last couple of weeks, with Hellick coming back into the side from Makoso and looking really good, much more like himself at the back end of last season. So I'm, where do I sit? I got flack from Oxford fans at the beginning of the season for saying that I thought we were going to get relegated, or from some, I should say. I still think on the balance of probability, the chances are more likely that Oxford go down than don't go down. But as a fan, I still harbour massive hope that we're going to do it. Like I don't get to go to as many games as I'd like to because of family, for the most part, of having two small kids. But I have chalked off the last 3 games of the season that I will be going to because I believe that they are going to be massive games in terms of us staying up.
That's a huge boost for the team.
So I think, well, no, it's more that it's not like I think we're going to get relegated and therefore, so I am, I'm optimistically pessimistic, I guess, where like I think we are one of the likeliest 2 teams to join Sheffield Wednesday in getting relegated, but I hold out hope that we can prove that wrong.
Okay, let's make it easy for us to be shot at by finishing with our predictions. My top 2, Coventry and Millwall.
My top 2 are Coventry and Middlesbrough.
Playoff 4 for me, Middlesbrough, Ipswich, Southampton, Hull, in that order.
Ipswich, Millwall, Southampton, Derby.
Wow. Relegation, Sheffield Wednesday, Leicester City, Oxford United.
Sheffield Wednesday, Oxford and Pompey.
Wow. So whatever happens on Easter Monday won't matter. You both go down.
It'll matter at the time.
Matter at the time. Hope you've enjoyed this. Championship fans, do subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening, thanks to Sky Bet for sponsoring the podcast and the Sky Bet EFL Building Foundations Fund. Cheers. Go well.